This is case study scenario 1. The title of this is All the Eggs in One Basket. It is about a boy who was in school, and his name is Scott, and school was hard for him due to his learning disability, but he tried his best in the past because he wanted to play football. This year, with incentives lost and failing grades, the only option to graduate if he failed his high school complacency test was with a special diploma. One course and one teacher with a strict reputation stood in his way. Research and recommendations for students with learning disabilities. The first one we have is provide ample, independent, well-designed incentive practices. So Scott was in a self-contained pre-algebra class before the geometry class. And because the class was smaller and more individualized and used an instructional approach, it helped Scott to be successful in his class. He ended up passing the class and was then placed in a general education class for the rest of the year. So, if Scott is in a smaller classroom with less people, he is more likely to pass the class. Next, we have big ideas. According to our class textbook, the big idea approach entails examining the curriculum to determine key skills, knowledge, and concepts, and focusing instruction on this information. The big ideas serve as anchoring concepts as students learn smaller ideas. This will help Scott grasp the information more in his geometry class. Apply regular quality feedback. By providing feedback for Scott, it lets him know that he is doing the right or wrong thing and he's headed on the right track with his work. If you catch the mistakes earlier, it's easy to correct them later. Provide prompts of strategies to use. There are several different strategies to use in the class to help Scott with his memory. According to our textbook again, there are mnemonic devices to help the student remember the information better. Another strategy is focusing on the key words of the text. The keyword strategy uses a word that is familiar to the learner. These strategies could help Scott in his language arts and math class. It would also be beneficial to Scott if the teacher stopped and did a small summary of what they had learned so far. This would help build his memory over time. For a class about what was done in the previous class. Scott has a short-term memory, and by the next day in class, he has usually forgotten everything he had learned. Because of this short-term memory, it would be helpful if Marcia or Janine would review the previous information the class had learned the day before. If they spent the first 10 minutes of class reviewing previous information, it may help Scott remember what they had talked about in the previous class. Now we have individual work instead of group work. According to the Learning Disability Association, success for Scott requires a focus on individual achievement, individual progress, and individual learning. This requires specific, directed, individualized, and intensive instruction for the student who is struggling. Scott would need his own plan and his own instruction. This would help him understand the information in his geometry class more. He also wouldn't become as distracted or discouraged with all the other work that the group is doing, and he would be able to stay focused on what he is doing. We have success in the future. Marcia and Janine both want Scott to succeed. His success in the future should be their main goal, especially if he is failing his other classes. Janine should make careful selections of post-secondary options that provide the necessary supports for Scott to succeed. Irene should give Scott a second chance because he is under different circumstances than he was before. He can now hold a job because he isn't playing football. Irene should take these in consideration. Have supports and programs for Scott. There is the National Center for Learning Disabilities Online, and the Learning Disabilities Association for America. All of these are web resources that Marcia and Janine can receive information about how to assist and help further Scott's education. We have Case Study Scenario 2. The title of this is Stuck in the Middle. This case study is about Christine Wallace, who is struggling to meet the needs of her general education class with the addition of 2 children with special needs. One of these children, Katie Alvarez, has it designated in her IEP that she will have the assistance of a special education aide while in Christine's class. Having Katie's aide, Miss Butler, in the classroom makes Christine's job more manageable, but school administration is reassigning her elsewhere on a regular basis. Christine debates on how to handle this delicate issue. 2 different advocacies for Katie. The first one is the American Association on Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities. This can be used for Christine to help advocate for Katie and get her support in the classroom. This will also help Christine to be able to know her rights and what she is able to do for Katie. The next one is Through the Looking Glass. This is an advocacy program for Katie's mom. Katie isn't getting the proper technology or assistance in the classroom at her new school, so this would allow the chance for Katie's mom to have an opportunity to help Katie have a voice again in the classroom. Professional and legal responsibilities that Christine is faced with. The first one is to advocate for the child. In the Code of Ethics, the teacher is an advocate for the child, and Katie is not receiving the help she needs, so Christine should become her biggest advocator and supporter at school. Next, we have privacy. In Christine's classroom, there's another student with special needs, and his name is Carlos, and he has cerebral palsy. Katie's aide helps him too. Christine needs to make sure that when she talks to Katie's mom, that she does not say anything about the aide helping Carlos, because that is another student's private information and should not be given out to another parent of a student in the classroom. We have uphold the law. Christine needs to make sure she is upholding the law of special education, because if these laws are broken, then this could turn into a legal battle between the Alvarez family and the school. And the Alvarez family knows their rights, so if they find out Katie is not receiving the proper help, the school could be in trouble. Last, we have benefit the family. The Alvarez family moved to this new school because they had to go to a different military base. The school that they were at before, Katie had all of her needs met, and she was taken care of at her other school. Those same benefits that she was receiving at her old school, she should be receiving them in the school she is now. There should be no difference between the schools and the help she's needing. These are my references, and thank you for listening, and I hope you learned something through this. Thank you.